evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 672nd edition of the Feuerstein's Fire American Soccer Show. I'm your host, Daniel Feuerstein. I'll give you American perspective, our clubs, leagues, players, national team, and other fabulous moments. Get your daily reading from me and other writers over at Beyond the 90, at beyondthe90.substack.com, and locally in New York at Bad Dog Sports, currently helping out JJ Pavlik till he gets back on his feet. So I'll be assisting him for now. And when I'm done there, I will return to ajmsportsfc.com. The chat room is open, especially on YouTube. If you watch this program on YouTube, you like a question for me, I'll try to answer it to the best of my abilities as we get ready for tonight's show. This is one of those shows I love doing. And I'll tell you why I love doing a show like this. And here's the reason why. Stadium announcements that once again strengthens the sport in the United States. It doesn't matter what league it is. It does not matter. Major League Soccer, USL Championship, USL League One. If USL League Two wants to go for it, go right ahead. If NPSL wants to go for it, go right ahead. If NISA wants to do it, go right ahead. Any of these independent clubs in MLS Next Pro, they want to build their own soccer stadium, you go right ahead. Because I'm telling you this right now, this is the main reason why this sport continues to grow and to improve and to make sure we have a solid footing in the professional sports landscape of this country. We must celebrate. No matter which club in which league builds a stadium, all that matters is that it gets built. It helps the club. It helps the national team. It helps our tournaments, whether it be a regular season match, playoff match, Open Cup, whatever have you. Building stadiums for the sport in this country is most imperative. And that means the usage of an NFL stadium, the countdown on the clock will begin once we have an announcement, bringing in all the dignitaries of that city, of that state, members of the professional league, members of the club, the supporters, everybody involved in the club on the inside or on the outside, whether you're a paying customer or not, if you are a member of the written media. It is about time that we finally have another crown jewel of a stadium for the sport in this country. Once again, there are many factors if we're going to evolve this league in MLS and all the different leagues under the umbrella of U.S. Soccer to get better and improve and to become strong. But one of them is building stadiums. And as much as it's nice that we have an NFL stadium made for the game, like up in New England, like in Atlanta, in Charlotte, in Seattle. The truth of the matter is this, is that we need to make sure that we move away, graduate from the usage of stadiums of different sports and to have a real identity in this nation. Look at this photo. It doesn't matter. Look at this. Look at this. Look at that rendering. Look at that rendering of the future of the Chicago Fire. Look at it. Look at the beauty of it. It's a drawing. Fine. It's a drawing. But to me, it's a work of art. And that idea will come to fruition inside the inner city streets of Chicago. You know, I got to be honest here with everyone. And, I know I'm not from Chicago. I'm not from the area. I shouldn't have to talk about it because I'm not a Chicagoan. And that's fine. I'm not from the north side or the south side. But at the time they built the soccer stadium in Bridgeview, Illinois, I didn't care. I was happy it was built, that a stadium meant for the game was being built for those fans in Chicago. Now, I don't know how far away Bridgeview is from downtown Chicago. I have to take a look myself. But I was happy it was built. I'm happy it was done. Now, could have maybe been designed a little bit better. Yeah, probably so. But I was happy. And when they moved back to Soldier Field in downtown Chicago, I thought it was a mistake. I thought it was a major mistake. I thought that was the wrong thing to do. But then again, the new owner of the Chicago Fire at the time was Joe Mansueto. And I'll admit, I didn't know much about the man. I was happy that he took over owning the club from Hopman. I thought, fresh minds, fresh ideas. Chicago needs it. The sport needs it in Chicago. And I was happy. And even though I didn't really protest that much because look, this was his idea. He wanted to move back into the heart of the city, which I kind of understood. But in my own personal belief, I thought it was basically a mistake to go back to share the stadium with the Chicago Bears, which is basically their stadium now. Of course, they have their ideas, of course, of leaving Chicago in Soldier Field to go to somewhere else to build their new stadium, but we'll see what happens there. But that's a different story for a different time. I thought Mansueto, when going backwards, was the wrong thing to do. In fact, I have to admit, myself personally, that was the right thing to do. Because look at what he planned for and look at what he is deciding to do. He believes not only in the city, but he believes in the sport. He believes in this game. And that is all I have ever asked for people who want to prove to us, who are the fans, the media, and the players who play this game, whether it be a grass field, a sand lot, the suburbs, a hard court, a field turf, astroturf, whatever have you. If you believe in this sport and you believe it's going to work, whether it's in your town, in your suburb, in your city, then you are on board. And what he has done just blows me away. It blows me away, the passion and the care that Joe Mansueto has for the Chicago, for the Fire, and for the sport in this country. Now, obviously, Soldier Field, if it remains standing up straight, obviously future Gold Cup tournaments will probably still go there. A future World Cup qualifier might go there, but I would say don't even bother. Because once in 2028 that this lovely design comes to fruition, Chicago can fill it up. Chicago will come to that brand new firehouse in the South Loop. They will fill it to the hilt. As an American soccer fan as a whole, this makes me smile. This makes me proud. This makes me happy. Not just for everyone in Chicago, as I've said, but for the game in this country. Because if we cannot have a stadium like that, we'll never have stadiums for the game in this country. And it has to continue on no matter what until we fill up every single professional club under the umbrella of U.S. soccer. No matter where they are, no matter what league they play in, this is part of the building blocks that must continue to strengthen the game in this country. As of right now, Atlanta, Charlotte, New England, San Diego is using a college football stadium. Vancouver, Seattle, and even though New York City FC is still in the middle of constructing their stadium, they still have to show up at a ballpark, either in Queens or in the Bronx. And it's still a headache until that Etihad Park is finally finished. And even though these NFL stadiums are also meant for the game, it's time to say goodbye to that idea. It's time to now allow this league to really be on their 2 feet and find a way to grow up. A big boy league in a big boy sport, not just what goes on everywhere else around the world, but finally in our backyard. You know, when the news broke out about this and the renderings came out, you know, I went on YouTube. I went on all the Chicago affiliates, from NBC affiliate, the CBS affiliate, the ABC affiliate, MLS's programs through Apple TV, talking about this. And what really, really makes me laugh, and it actually cracks a smile to my face. Yes, I know. I'm a Yankee fan. I watch baseball. Yes. But even though the soccer fan in me was happy to see how the Chicago Fire, pardon me, scooped the White Sox and they take over that piece of land in the South Loop. You know what that old adage is? You snooze, you lose. And that's where I give credit to the Chicago Fire. Now, obviously, we'll talk more about it with my guests coming up very soon. But I will say this. It feels good to know that even though the 4 major sports in this country is baseball, Major League Baseball, the National Football League, the NBA, the NHL, isn't it great to see professional soccer finally trumping one of those leagues in securing that land? Well, we'll find out once everything gets through. State and local city agreements and everything like that. Of course, it has to be infrastructure. But one thing I'm happy about is this, ladies and gentlemen. This stadium is going to be done by the club and only by the club, and I'm excited about it. Ladies and gentlemen, why not talk to the local reporters who cover the Chicago Fire? Once again, from the Lantern, Ruben Tisch, and also joining me from Fire Confidential, Guillermo Rivera. And Guillermo, this is the first time we're seeing each other live, face to face, so it's great to see you, my friend. Guillermo, I'll go to you first. When you heard the news that Joe Mansueto basically came out of the blue and showed those blueprints of the brand new stadium, what did you think, sir?
It's exciting. He had said for a while now that he believed that sports owners should be responsible for footing the bill for professional stadiums, not taxpayers. So he had basically put his money where his mouth was and followed through with exactly what he said he was going to do and fund his own stadium. You have to applaud him. That's a tack that none of the other owners in Chicago here have taken. And the White Sox are apparently still interested in that same parcel of land. So I'd be really interested in seeing how the White Sox propose to fund that stadium if they do go there, because uh, they've got a stadium that's perfectly fine right now, and the Bears are having trouble getting money from the state. So I find it hard to believe the White Sox will be able to get anything out of them.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Ruben, going to you now. In Chicago, obviously, it's tough, like in New York City, it's tough to find land to build brand new things, whether it be a regular building, a sports and entertainment district, even though the Cubs have really redone the Wrigley Field area very nicely. Uh, this South Loop section of Chicago, for those of us not from Chicago, where is this located?
So if it's actually relatively close to Soldier Field. Soldier Field sort of sits on an area of the lakefront, sort of directly south of the museum campus, which is the planetarium, the aquarium, and the field museum, and Roosevelt Road, which is the major road that sort of east wests the 78, the name of the development, um, is perpendicular essentially to the field museum. So it's about, I don't want to, a mile and a half, 2 miles, 2.5 miles, something like that, directly west of Soldier Field. So you go through the loop and you're essentially there. It is directly on the bank of the river. One of the ways um, that was specifically mentioned in the letter to the city by Joe Mansueto announcing this project was that it would be accessible by water taxi, which is exciting. Uh, Not just the public transportation, the CTA and the Metro, and I think there's a bus or two that goes there as well. So it is about as downtown as you could get.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I have it on my Google Maps at the moment, taking a look at it. And, I have to admit, Guillermo, there is plenty of land so that, if the White Sox do leave the South Side and, they want to build the ballpark there, I mean, there's definitely plenty of room, in my opinion, they can do that. But we're not going to worry about that right now. This is more about the fire, to be honest. And as you said, Joe Mansueto put his money where his mouth is. I mean, you have to say, the government, the mayor of Chicago, was so happy to hear that, how he praised Joe Mansueto to really take the initiative himself to build this on his own.
Well, they built the training center recently here. He's invested a good deal of money into the team. He paid $70 million to get out of Bridgeview. So money is not an issue apparently with Joe Mansueto. As far as the fire goes, you figured that eventually he was going to spend his way into some success. And there's some trial and error here with the first regime that he brought in to run the team after he bought it. But they appear to be pointed in the right direction. Just getting back to the property itself, I think it's 62 acres. The stadium footprint takes up 9 of those acres. So there's room, but their grand vision is to build sort of an entertainment complex. It's similar to the Wrigleyville area where people can go to, go to a restaurant or catch a show or do something else. So there will be other tenants in that property. So those remaining 50 or so acres are going to go quickly because people got to park somewhere as well. So you can't put 2 gigantic stadiums along with an entertainment complex in there and expect people to, water taxi or bus their way in there. People are going to want to park somewhere.
No, I agree with you there. And I mean, there's, like I said, I mean, there's plenty of room to do anything and everything over there. I see, obviously, like I said, I can only see it from a distance. You guys are locally there. You know what goes on in Chicago. So I refer to both of you on this one. And Ruben, like you said, there's plenty of public transportation available, buses, the CTA, the Metro. What lines would go to this area, and how many blocks away is it?
Um, I believe the Metro is which is the commuter train, is basically right there, within like a block or two, I believe. There's kind of a minor development directly across the street, on Roosevelt, where there's shops and apartments and stuff. That is also relatively new on the other side of this. So there's public transportation from there. There's the Roosevelt L stop, which is also the L stop that you get off of to go to Soldier Field. That is orange, which is sort of like the southwest. There's the blue line, which is the west side that goes all the way to O'Hare. That's a couple blocks away. Also, the green, which is sort of the northwest, and the red line, which is the State Street subway that runs north and south, sort of along the lakefront. So it is very well, available for public transportation from basically everywhere. Now, there's other things we could talk about, sort of beyond the scope of here, which, downstate and public transportation money, and that the CTA is sort of in flux at the moment, in a bit of a budget fight with Springfield right now. So what the transportation situation is in 4 to 5 years, when the stadium is there, we don't exactly know. But right now, I would say the public transportation situation is pretty good.
Oh, that's fantastic to hear. Both of you gentlemen, I want you to answer this question first, Guillermo, and then Ruben. When the news broke out, did you get a phone call from a friend or from a colleague? You were on social media. Did you look it up on Blue Sky, on X, Twitter? Where did you find the news, and how quickly did you just look this up to make sure this wasn't a dream? That, oh my God, we're going to leave Soldier Field in about 3 years. This is fantastic.
I was poolside in Aruba when the news broke. So
I had just got back from walking my dog. I went on Blue Sky to doom scroll as one does in the morning, and yeah, it was there. Yeah, it is really exciting. I am a White Sox fan, so
Uh-oh.
so my sort of quote unquote dream scenario was the White Sox get the 78 and the Fire retrofit Sox Park.
Mhm.
Because for me personally, um and just from a financial, I actually just looked this up. It was about $85 million for the Providence Park renovations in Portland for the Timbers. From Granted, that's a minor league baseball stadium, so you're going from a minor league baseball stadium to a major league baseball stadium facility.
Mhm.
But if the White Sox did get primary tenantship of the 78, my first thought, and it would probably be more economical than building a stadium, was to retrofit Sox Park into a soccer specific stadium, because we've seen it work in Portland. There's literally a red line station right there. The Illinois Institute of Technology is also right there. So you've got kind of if you're MLS, your demographic, that's sort of young, vibrant, while not downtown, you're right next to IIT, and you've got a pool of potential fans from the student body there. So for me, plus, if you go back far enough, that is one of the sites that AEG was looking at when they built Toyota Park, StubHub Stadium, whatever the stadium in Bridgeview is called now. they were looking at building it in the parking lot where old Comiskey Park was. So they built the old Comiskey Park. They built new Comiskey Park across the street, and then tore it down and put the parking lot. That's where the White Sox tailgating area is. So they were looking at building the original stadium there, and I don't think we'd be having this conversation if they had. We'd just be talking about how terrible the stadium looks and how while Columbus Crew Stadium did a fantastic job ushering in the era of the Soccer Specific Stadium, it's an ugly cookie cutter building and in no way would have reflected the architectural legacy of the city of Chicago, which, if you look at the drawing, which you did post show on stream, does. And
I'll show it again. It's fine.
Yeah,
there it is.
That is my favorite thing about the stadium, is that it actually looks like a building and not like a stadium.
I agree. That it looks like an actual stadium. I mean, this is just. I salivate over this. I mean, look, when I go to Red Bull Arena, well, now it's called Sports Illustrated Stadium, but that was a stadium for the game. I mean, the way that it was built, the way it was constructed, the way it looks, it's just, it doesn't look like a cookie cutter. It doesn't look like it's, I think you would say it doesn't look like, I would say maybe what Toronto, like BMO Field in Toronto and the Q2 in Austin kind of looks the same a little bit, you might say. But still, though, I mean, this is a stadium without a doubt, Guillermo. This is a stadium. My God, it just, if you want to make it like $1 million painting, put it and hang it up in your house, you go right ahead, man. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the actual renderings for this thing. That's a sketch of the things. I think renders are going to be available for public consumption in not too distant future. And I'm looking forward to those, because that'll make this look even better. You'll see color, kind of like what this thing is going to look like in reality. And talking about cookie cutters, Toyota Park, SeatGeek, whatever you want to call it now, was sort of a cookie cutter look. It's a soccer stadium. The intent was to use it for soccer, but it looked like other stadiums that were being built in MLS at the time, kind of that. One size fits all design that was popular at that time. And that's a nice thing about this. Like you said, it looks unique. Like Ruben mentioned, it does pay respect to the architectural legacy of the city. There's a little bit, I see a little bit of Soldier Field, in the old Soldier Field, in there as well. So yeah, it's nice that they went and paid tribute to some of that history as well, and going into a new location.
No, absolutely.
I have a question for Guillermo, actually, because my first thought when they announced it and announced the capacity was, it's too small. The conspiracy theory in my head is that it's that small because they are consciously saving room for the White Sox, and that they're going to build both stadiums probably right next to each other, if not change the design of the fire so there might be part of like linked in some way, either through a bridge or something else, like because 22,000 seems small. Like there's no real room for attendance growth, because the average is right around that right now.
Yeah, that's probably the sweet spot, I think, for MLS stadiums. There's a lot to do in Chicago in the summer. I don't know that 30,000 seat stadium would have been filled past year one and past that sort of honeymoon new stadium type of excitement. I think if the Fire stay between that 22 to 25 zone, that's probably where they should be. They're going to have to put a good team on the field eventually to fill that place. So outside of that first year and the excitement of that first year stadium and everybody going down there to check it out, which I'm sure there'll be large crowds for that. Once that newness wears off, they're going to have to put a good team on the field to fill that thing. And they're drawing in Soldier Field. There's a ton of giveaways, and I think those numbers are a little bit inflated. They're drawing decent crowds, but again, I think that 22 to 25 is probably the sweet spot of where they want it to be and where they should be. And I would certainly hope that they didn't forecast, building capacity based on the White Sox. I don't think the White Sox or any other team is going to afford them that sort of luxury as well. Fair. So, yeah, I think they're 22 to 25 is probably about right.
Well, I wouldn't say them. I'd say the developers more than Joe Mansueto himself.
Yeah, related Midwest. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Let me ask you guys this, Guillermo, and of course to Ruben. We'll go to Guillermo first and Ruben. What was the feeling when you turned on Chicago Sports Talk Radio? Or I guess if there are deals with, I'm assuming the new Chicago Sports Network that's out there, because NBC Sports Chicago is no longer around, that all of a sudden everyone on Chicago Sports Radio is talking about the fire and the way that Mansueto has said, we're going to build it, we're going to do it. I mean, how surprised were you that everyone is basically going crazy during Chicago Sports Talk on the radio?
Not surprised. I mean, that's a big story, and it deserves the attention or the headlines that it got. Of course, in Chicago Sports Radio, it kind of turned into how does this affect the White Sox rather than, hey, the Fire are building a new stadium. But again, he put his money where his mouth is. This is what he said he was going to do. He wanted to. He thought that billionaire owners should build their own stadiums, and I think that went a long way toward getting him get the Fire a lot of attention sports-wise. And of course, that was kind of short-lived because the White Sox the very next day announced that there was a potential ownership change in the works. So that wiped them right off of the front page of the back page of the sports section. But again, it's attention. It's well-deserved attention. It should have been covered the way it should have been. I'm surprised. Actually, there should have been more coverage because you've got a professional soccer team building a stadium that's anchoring a 78th neighborhood in the Chicago area and using that soccer-specific stadium as the linchpin of that building or of that property. So it rightfully got the coverage it got.
It was also the first day of Bears mandatory minicamp. So
Bears rule all.
So yeah. I was actually pleasantly surprised by it because while it did eventually turn into, well, what does this say about the White Sox? And obviously, as we would learn a day later, not only do managers get fired after they lose to the Chicago Fire, ownership changes hands when ownerships lose to the Chicago Fire. But yeah, I was surprised, especially on the shows I listen to. I don't really listen to the ESPN affiliate. I listen to the independent, I guess you call it, sports radio station here. And they were very good about talking about the Fire and how much this changes things because they've tried changing it on field first, and we saw that with the acquisition of Sherdan Shaqiri, which did not work. And a lot of the background stuff that went unnoticed that really is beyond the scope of this conversation as far as the academy stuff I've mentioned on the show before. But what they knew all that stuff, and they talked about how the narrative is that the things Joe Mansueto has done before didn't work, and now that you've basically come in and undercut the Chicago White Sox and the Bears too, for that matter, into this space as a statement of intent. And I think that is the most important thing, beyond the fact that they're playing really well and they just beat a hapless DC United 7-2 last weekend, and
That's not a
all sorts
beating.
of
That's a destruction.
and all sorts of things like that. It's a statement of intent that
I hope there's room for a Tom Barlow statue out in front of it.
Yeah.
Keep hoping.
Look, that's probably the best performance of Tom Barlow's life, and it's probably going to be the peak of his career.
Exactly.
If he plays another 100 minutes this year, I'll be surprised. But it tells me, it tells the city, it tells the media, more importantly, that the Fire belong, as owning the soccer conversation in Chicago. And I know that got a chuckle out of Guillermo, because that's what Nelson Rodriguez used to say when that fraud was in charge of the organization. So now they're actually doing it, and they have the money to back it up. And the thing that I think is most important about the very aggressive timeline to remember is that a stadium was always going to be a part of this development. Whether the Bears, the White Sox, or the Fire now. So it's already zoned for it. There's already public infrastructure money set aside, not just for the stadium, which is, I think you're going to see some things at some point about how it's not really all private money. There's public money going into this too. There is, but all of the public money is infrastructure money, which is what when the Bears and the White Sox went to Governor Pritzker to ask, for public money and the tax break and stuff for their stadium, what Pritzker basically said was, you need a road built, we'll build you a road. You need access and, stuff. There's money set aside for that. We can do that. We're not going to spend a single cent building the building. And I think the important thing to remember here is that while there is public money for infrastructure, and it will be used for roads, parking infrastructure, the development of the rest of the land, the Fire are every single brick of the stadium, every steel beam, every piece of concrete, every plastic seat, hopefully every bar used in the supporters safe standing section is private. And that's the most important thing to remember about this development, and why it's such a big deal for stadium development, not just in Chicago, but throughout the entire country. This is a privately funded building.
Agreed. Absolutely agree with you a whole 100% there, Ruben. It really is. And I have to ask you this, Guillermo, and I know you've probably seen the video already of the Chicago Fire mascot walking on to that 78 area in the South Loop, sitting on the lounge chair, not in Aruba though. I had to do it. Just sitting there holding the Chicago Tribune newspaper, seeing a photo of the stadium, and it said, and then when they moved away and they got the bigger photo, the bigger picture, and it says, "We got dibs." Was that funny? Was that funny to you? Is that like,
Yeah, that's a creative little marketing, video, a little bit of a shit post at the White Sox and calling dibs on the property. Yeah, it was creative. I got a kick out of that. I think most people understood the dibs reference and the chairs. Yeah, it was cool. It was cool. It was a cute commercial.
Yeah, David Beckham didn't like it. But yeah, to explain the dibs thing, we have the thing in the winter. You dig out a parking spot out of the snow and you put your lawn chair there, and that's your parking spot, and you can't take it. Nobody else can take it because you got dibs on the parking spot. The Fire got dibs on the stadium site. Yeah, it was clever. I think it was our friend Brian Sandalo in the Chicago Sun-Times that he was reading, which
Hmm.
was cool for him and for me as a friend of his. It was cool. But yeah, it was cute. I think Sparky's the best mascot in the league. Probably the best mascot in the city, bar Benny.
Benny,
So
Benny the Bull wants a word.
yeah, I it's Benny and Sparky 1 and 2. I think Clark is way down at the bottom of the list.
Clark is from Wrigleyville or no?
Clark is the Cubs.
Okay, that's what I thought. Yeah.
Yeah, Clark the Cub.
Mhm.
Who doesn't wear pants? But yeah, it was cute. I enjoyed it. These are the things you have to do now on social media. The Fire social media team has been probably the best thing about the club for like the last half decade. Their social media and their video team are spectacular, and the team has been bad for a decade, but the production around them has been very good.
Mm-hmm.
So we can hang our hat on that, I guess.
No, that's great. I mean, look, that's the hope. One thing goes right, and you're hoping the other thing goes well included, but sometimes it lacks. But now, I mean, they're in a good position at this point in time. You like for them to be a little bit better, obviously, but we'll see what happens. Well, if you play DC every week, it can happen. But if you want to put another 7 on the Galaxy, that can happen too. Unfortunately, you're going to have to face them once a year or whenever you do.
I think it's like once
So,
every 3 years.
yeah,
You face the
unfortunately,
Western
isn't it?
Conference team. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the unfortunate thing. But yeah, but like I said, I at but when ever since Mansueto took over the club from Hopman, Guillermo, and then they moved back into Soldier Field. Like I said in my intro monologue, was I happy they went back to Chicago in the Chicago proper? Yes. Was I happy they went back to Soldier Field? No. I thought that was a mistake. I thought it was a big mistake going back to Soldier Field, going back into a cavernous NFL stadium. But I guess this was in the plans. I guess this was, well, I want to be back. I want to go back to Soldier Field to have the feeling of the city for my players. And obviously, I can't question it anymore. This was a very good idea from Mansueto to move the club out of Bridgeview and put him back in Soldier Field. And now
If you
this
have $71
gem,
million burning a hole in your pocket to throw out the window, sure, why not? Get
yeah,
out of Bridgeview and go to Soldier Field.
yeah,
I thought that I'm not sure it was quite planned out. They wanted a city proper property for a stadium. I don't think they had a 78 in mind when they made the move out of Toyota Park to Soldier Field. I think he was sold an idea that, hey, we've got to move downtown. That's part of the problem. We don't have attendance. We can't get public transportation there readily. So I think that he kept hearing from people who were in his ear that, hey, that's part of the problem for the Fire, and their lack of success has been the location of Toyota Park. So ideally, to me, it would have made sense to put together a decent team, sort of build a demand for that, and then move out of Toyota Park. Rather than go into Soldier Field, which is, like you said, a big cavernous NFL stadium where they're playing second or third fiddle to the Bears and whatever concert is taking up the venue on any given summer weekend. So, yeah, we're here now. I mean, it's in the past at this point. But like I said, if Mansueto wants to spend $7 million to throw out the window, give it to Bridgeview, and get out of Toyota Park, that's his within his purview to do that, I guess.
yeah. And Ruben, like I was saying, I'm just happy for everyone in Chicago. They're getting a world-class venue. Obviously, like you said, the infrastructure is ready to go. Mansueto is ready to build it. It's just the man delivered. The man actually delivered when he made that announcement for the stadium. I'm just so happy for you and everyone in Chicago, Ruben, that you know, supporting this club for such a long period of time. I mean, obviously the Bob Bradley era has been long gone for a very long time. Obviously, those clubs that had Lubos Kubik, DeMarcus Beasley, Chris Armas, Zach Thornton, um, and probably other players I have forgotten already. But you can also remind me too
Paulo
that have won.
Wanchope.
Yep, Paulo Wanchope, um, and of course the great Mexican international. Um, yeah, I forgot his name already.
Cuauhtemoc
Jeez.
Blanco is, I believe,
Thank
who
you,
you were.
Blanco. That's it, Cuauhtemoc Blanco.
I'm pretty sure you
Uh,
weren't thinking of Neri Castillo.
I was going to say
absolutely not.
Guillermo Franco.
Guillermo Franco.
No, I was not thinking of him either. I promise you that. I
Listen,
promise
he
you
was
that.
on
I
a
was
team that made the playoffs. Okay,
not. Yeah,
Guillermo
but
Franco. So
winning the double in 1998, beating
Yeah.
DC United in the MLS Cup final, winning the first of 4 Open Cup championships, of course, on that team, and
I would probably be remiss if I didn't mention, and Guillermo knows this because we've worked together in the Fire Mediascape for a long time. If I did not mention that the manager with the most trophies in Chicago Fire history is Dave Sarakin.
very true. And he was I think he was the assistant coach most of the time.
He managed the team when they won 3 Open Cups and the Supporters Shield.
Ah, okay.
So he's got 4 trophies for the Fire as manager.
Wow. That is a very, very long time. Jeez. I keep forgetting. I keep something because I can't help it. I can't help it because sometimes I think about Dave Sarakin. I think Bruce Arena Lackey. That's all. That's just me. I mean,
Yeah, no, he's got 3 Open Cups and a Supporters Shield. A lot. It's funny you bring up Bob Bradley, because a lot of the flowers he gets should actually go to Dave Sarakin because Bradley was only there from '98 to 2000 when he left to go coach the Metro Stars.
that's true.
And Dave Sarakin was in charge of the best MLS team to not win a championship and the best MLS team to not make a final, because
Yep.
then we were all deprived of the 2001 MLS Cup between the Miami Fusion and
Oh
the
yes,
Fire.
yes. That's.
Ruben is playing the deep cuts over here.
Oh
Yep,
yeah,
I know.
yeah.
I know. I know that semifinal that my team had to play Miami Fusion in Long Island. That was
Why is Ray Hudson such a? I'd like to think Ray Hudson is such a beloved figure in American soccer, not because of his commentary work, but because he was the manager of that team with Nick Raimondo and Kyle
yes,
Beckerman, and I
yes.
believe that was Precky's last season, I think, as
Hmm.
well.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah, that final we never got lives regretfully in my heart.
Yeah, unfortunately. But yes, and Ante Razov. I can't forget Ante Razov. Razov was a very good striker
The
for Chicago.
the greatest Chivas USA player of all time.
And they're dead as a doorknob.
Well, he'll never be beat then.
That's true. That's very true. Oh my goodness. I mean, I've been bubbling with joy when I saw that news. I've been so happy for you guys. I've been happy for everyone in Chicago. And like I said, look, it's not just for league games in MLS. It's not just, of course, home matches for Open Cup. I will not speak of that fraudulent cup tournament called Leagues Cup because it's still a bunch of BS. That's just me. But, another home field advantage for the U.S. men's national team and for the U.S. women's national team for friendlies or for World Cup qualification matches. I mean, that is the most important thing as well, Guillermo.
Yeah, and it's you don't have to play second fiddle to the Bears or concerts or whatever the Park District wants to do with the stadium at any particular point. You don't have to worry about the grass getting torn up by the Bears on a Sunday afternoon with a Saturday game being canceled or being scheduled, or having to reschedule a game for your Toyota Park because the Bears have a preseason game. It's a soccer specific stadium. That's the beauty of it.
Exactly. And like I saw said, Ruben, this is just a wonderful time. This is a wonderful time to be a soccer fan in Chicago. And do you think maybe some of the local universities in Chicago or the high schools, there might be some usage of this stadium when we get these soccer tournaments going?
Maybe UIC has a really nice soccer facility. So does Northwestern, which is interesting because there's also the Stars to think about here. And there's some people in the fire community, especially on Reddit, where when this was announced, we're talking about how, because the Stars also want to leave Bridgeview because it's not good for them either. For a lot of the same reasons, only magnetized because I think the Stars fandom is a lot more urbanized than the Fire is. When I wanted to mention earlier, when you talked about the Fire leaving, is part of the problem is we're not seeing a lot of those suburban fans in Soldier Field, and who had an easier time getting to Bridgeview than they do getting to Soldier Field. If the Bears weren't the Bears, that's something the Bears would also have to contend with. If the NFL wasn't such a monolith. So
Yeah.
the Stars want out too, and there's some thought that there might be something, or some wishful thinking that there might be something there for them as well. There's also the quote unquote temporary stadium that Northwestern football is playing in, which is really Northwestern's lacrosse stadium that has temporary seating for them while their new stadium gets built. Or they could even play at the new Welshrein Arena, because Northwestern is only building a 25,000 seat football stadium themselves. So that's also an option for the Red Stars. And I thought, maybe an option for the Fire while this stadium gets built, if they want to leave the auspices of the Park District. So there's a lot of weird moving pieces going around at the moment, and a lot of flux. But what is not in flux, I think, is while it is unofficial, this stadium is going to happen.
Yes, exactly. And like I said, I cannot wait for that to happen. Hopefully, maybe they'll have a Copa Chicago tournament with all the amateur clubs that hang around Chicago, like Wisloka and RWB Adria.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you guys
Well,
amazed? I know some of these freaking teams. I mean, come on. I mean, I don't know
I
all
mean,
of them.
RWB Adria has won Open Cup, so yes, with
Yes.
your Open Cup knowledge, I would expect you. But yeah, there's also the Chicago House, which is famously Peter Wilt's
Baby.
latest baby, that he is no longer a part of. And
Oh,
oh yeah, he hasn't been involved with the house for years now.
oh wow, I did not know
Yeah.
that. Okay.
He's still Johnny Appleseeding his way around the Midwest. Yeah, and there's my club as the club I root for, Edgewater Castle. So yeah, there's a lot of high level in the city, amateur clubs, and so many, in fact, that the Midwest Premier League, which is like the highest level amateur in the sport, I'd say it's like Division 5 in, if we're talking soccer pyramid. There's an entire division that's basically Chicago clubs and DeKalb.
Yeah.
That's how many high level amateur clubs there are in the city.
Wow.
So yeah, maybe they could do like a tournament for them at the new stadium, fun stuff like that, a soccer festival, if you will.
Hmm.
Yeah, that'd be really neat.
Yeah, I think so too. Gentlemen, final thoughts, please. We'll go to Guillermo first, and then we go to Ruben. Go ahead, Guillermo. Your final thoughts, please, on this.
Yeah, I mean the Fire, like Ruben said earlier, is they've got more wins than they have losses for the first time in a long time. So they appear to be headed in the right direction on the field. I'm not sure that they're probably right on the borderline of a playoff team this year. I think they'll finish above that playoff line this year, but they're right there with a lot of other teams. So the Fire, it's a little bit of an exciting time. It should be for Fire fans with the team apparently on the upswing finally, and this new stadium, the Horizon. Mansueto has poured a ton of money into the club with the new training center. He's brought in additional scouting staff. Greg Berhalter, of course, was that's a big commitment as well. So I think Fire fans finally have something to look forward to. Finally,
Yeah, the team is entertaining. I don't think that's up for debate. I think Matt Doyle in his newsletter, um, or it was Doyle or someone else said that they're the Apple team, they're the neutral team, they're the team you want to watch because they'll score a lot of goals and they'll give up a lot of goals. So we can finally say at least that we have entertaining soccer on the men's side, at least in a long time. So that there's some buzz around this team. Um, there's the Neymar and De Bruyne linkage helped, even though they ended up not making either of those signings. But this only exponentially increases the buzz around this team like I haven't seen really since I was in high school.
Yeah. And don't forget, Cristiano Ronaldo is remaining in the Middle East, so he's not coming here either.
Well, that's a whole nother legal can of worms that I don't think of the three of us, I don't think any of us are equipped to handle.
No, I've handled Henri. I've handled Cahill. I think that's as far as I can go.
Well,
But
neither of
other
them
than
have
that, mhm.
allegations against them, so
Yes, we know. Yes, I know. I know. Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that's why he's remaining over there and he's not coming here. Oh
right.
darn. But anyway, gentlemen, as always, I appreciate your time. Thank you very much for joining me tonight. And I hope everyone, like yourselves in Chicago, are going to continue to celebrate this wonderful moment in Chicago soccer history. And I'm ready when 2028 comes around, and we'll find out who that first home game opponent will be to open up that MLS season. But as always, I appreciate your time. Thank you again, and have a good night.
Thank you for having
thank
us.
you.
Thank you. Ruben, Tisch, The Lantern, Guillermo, Rivera, Fire Confidential. Once again, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me tonight. And once again, ladies and gentlemen, here on the Feuerstein's Fire American Soccer Show, we're going to continue on here a little bit longer because obviously, um, you know, more conversation continues on here when it comes to the U.S. men's national team. And basically, there is a lot of chatter going on now because apparently we're seeing family members, mostly the parents of some of these players, who have requested breaks, a la Christian Pulisic. Apparently, his father has decided to open up his feelings and post them on Twitter. And my feeling on this, is really I understand he wants to defend his son, and that's fine. I probably should have put it up here, but I did not. And you know, the last time we've had a family, a father and a mother or parents trying to help their son, well, basically they interfered with U.S. soccer business. And he said basically about, Landon Donovan's sabbatical. Apparently, Landon Donovan took a sabbatical because he was feeling both physically and mentally exhausted after years of intense competition and the pressure that comes with being a top athlete. He'd been playing professionally from a young age and had participated in multiple World Cups, so he felt the need to step back and take some time for himself. This break allowed him to rest, travel, and ultimately return to the game with a refreshed mindset. Now, look, once again, I'm not questioning the mindset or how Christian Pulisic feels. Look, if he feels he needs to take a break, then fine, so be it. But the point that many people are making here is this, is that if he wants to take a break from the national team, it's really simple. September, October, November. You want to take a break during friendly matches? Be my guest. Inform Mauricio Pochettino. You want to take your break from the national team in September and October and November. They're friendlies, meaningless friendlies. That's fine. This window is the last official competition window of anything. And the way that things were screwed up under Greg Berhalter as the head coach of the U.S. men's national team, everything was falling apart. The way he managed, the way he couldn't handle the criticism, the way that his team was not doing the job and they were not getting the job done. Okay? So all I can say to Mr. Pulisic, and I'm talking to Christian's dad, I understand you're protecting your son and good for you. But can we just for once admit that he's finally getting the opportunity he deserved at Milan right now? Because after leaving Borussia Dortmund for Chelsea, he barely got an opportunity, even though it was under a manager who managed him at Dortmund. Now he's at Chelsea. And the way that things were going here, do you know how many people are now predicting, not across the globe, not from England, not from Germany, not from Italy, not from France, not from Spain, not from Japan or South Korea or Australia, the media here in the United States, where everyone is already predicting 3 and out in a World Cup where they are the host. Because right now, Canada is better. Even though Mexico did not have a good performance against Switzerland in their friendly, they have a better manager right now. And it's the same old plug-in manager because, oh my God, we're in a crisis all the time in Mexico. And while Mauricio Pochettino is here, we're now learning it is now more the players than it is Pochettino. He should be here for the national team playing in the Gold Cup. And look at Cristiano Ronaldo at the age of 40 playing for Portugal and winning that UEFA Nations League title. Regardless if you take stock in that or not, it's still a title that Portugal took seriously. And they won it with a 40-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo, with an over 30 Lionel Messi, who answers the call every single time Argentina calls him in because he wants to be there. And like I said, I understand if he's mentally fatigued, physically fatigued. I understand how he is feeling and he should take a break. But take it in the fall. Don't take it this month. But it's too late now. It's too late. You're taking your break. You're not a part of it. The last time that happened, obviously, the whole Landon Donovan situation, he took a couple months off, and he didn't make the World Cup roster. He did play in a Gold Cup. He was in the back end of World Cup qualification matches, but he never went to Brazil for the 2014 World Cup. And yeah, regardless if he was on the team or not, they still probably would have lost to Belgium in extra time. And Tim Howard would still have that miraculous goal-saving record performance. But once again, we all have to make these understandings clear. And I understand where everyone's coming from. Look, like I said, I'm understandable. I'm an understanding guy. I can understand why Pulisic feels that he needs to calm him. He needs a rest. But he's got to pick the right time. And he should also understand the urgency of why the fan base and the media feels this is the wrong time for him to take a break. He cannot do this, but he's done it already. And there's nothing much more you can say or do. He's already done it. He's taken that break now. He's not in any of the friendly games. Now, I will say this. I think it's great to see that friendly match. And even though 2 horrible self-inflicting wounds led to goals to the Turkey, other than that, it's, it's still not a good performance. They may have played better after the 2 self-inflicted wounds, but still, though, this is a situation where, you want to put on a good show and you want to show that you are capable of having these performances and having wins. Now, this coming Tuesday night, they'll be down in Nashville at Geodis Park to take on the Swiss. And that's not going to be an easy game either. So, all I can tell you is this, is that Pulisic better be ready for the World Cup, because if he is not, he's got nobody to blame but himself. Whether he likes it or not, he is the face of the U.S. men's national team. And I understand the European schedule, the Italian league schedule for Serie A, the Italian League Cup, the Coppa Italia, UEFA Champions League. Every year they're in it, AC Milan. It is a grind, and I understand that. But he's got to do better finding ways to pick his spots, to take a break and take a rest from the national team. And now here's something I'd like to speak to you about, the fans of the U.S. men's national team who continue to speak of idiotic things. And boy, oh boy, we have idiotic things. And the reason why we have idiotic things is because we have idiotic fans that doesn't want to listen, that doesn't want to pay attention, that doesn't understand the simple situations of how this sport is run and governed. You understand? You don't understand how this sport is governed. You're supposed to be the knowledgeable ones. You're supposed to know how everything goes. You keep telling me you know this, you know that, and then in reality, you don't know a damn thing. We have a person who goes off claiming to say about how Landon is being, I'll say it, I don't care, it's my show, I'll curse if I want to, how Landon's being a bitch. God forbid our players in Europe prioritize having a real career there over pointless friendlies against Saudi Arabia and Panama. Wow. Pointless friendlies against Saudi Arabia and Panama. So what does that mean? It tells you what this means. It means that he doesn't take the Gold Cup seriously. Now, once again, we'll get to that in a minute. But that is just ridiculous and silly and stupid. Has salty that he never did anything nearly as impressive as Pulisic is doing in Europe. Once again, this stupid idea about challenging a player who was on the men's national team, who played most of his career in MLS, to a player who has now played most of his career in Europe and is also on the U.S. men's national team. Look, I understand that we got issues here in North America. We have issues in MLS and issues with this and in CONCACAF and everything else, and I understand that. But the point is this. If you have the will to win, you want to be on the national team, then you go on the damn national team. But here's the thing that someone doesn't want to understand. Playing Panama in the Gold Cup, and we're not going to face them in the group stage, but if we do face them in the knockout stage, you need to understand something, sir. When you play Panama in the Copa America, in a Gold Cup, in the Nations League, and they have been, I'm not saying, forget bogey team. They're not the bogey team. I want everyone to understand this, and even everyone and anyone that covers the U.S. men's national team, either through CBS Sports Golazo, either on ESPN FC, or on Fox Sports, whoever have you, Panama is not the bogey team for the U.S. men's national team, okay? Panama has improved because they have a better manager than what they've had in the past. He has gotten them organized. He's gotten them to play better, stronger, and more determined. Panama wants to become the next footballing power in the Central American region, period, and in the Confederation of CONCACAF as a whole. They are improving under Thomas Christensen because he is a strong, brilliant footballing mind. Yeah, he lost to Pochettino in a friendly. But in matches that matter, in this confederation, like the Gold Cup, like the Nations League, you're going down again. It's over for you. You cannot beat us. That's what he's doing to the USA, regardless if it's Greg Berhalter, BJ Callahan, or Mauricio Pochettino. He's doing a job, and he's doing it well. This is the thing that you guys need to understand. You need to understand very, very quickly. In international football, regardless of what confederation they play in, regardless of who they are and where they come from, you must be ready for any and all competitions. God damn it. This is how silly and childish and stupid you are. And I have to say it because it's the truth. Oh, and now you want to claim Saudi Arabia as a meaningless friendly because they're the guest team in the Gold Cup? No, they are one of the best clubs, one of the best national teams in the Asian Football Confederation. They beat Argentina in a World Cup, you morons. Stop disrespecting the rest of world football just because they're not in Europe and just because they're not in South America. And don't give me major competitions like the Euros or the Copa America, because you need to understand something here once again. The United States men's national team cannot go to the Euros unless they are invited. And they will never be invited to the Euros. Why? Because they have enough teams to qualify for that tournament. So they don't need anybody else to come in outside of their borders, their footballing borders. Why is it that CONMEBOL originally invited teams to the Copa America? 2 teams. Why? Because they only have 10. They only have 10 teams. 10 nations. That's it. But let me go ahead and give you some mathematics here, okay? Let me give you some mathematics. Even though Russia is still suspended internationally, whether it be in ice hockey or football or handball or rugby, whatever have you, even basketball, or maybe even baseball if they play it. Maybe even golf and tennis. Let me explain something to you. If Russia is not suspended because of what they're doing in Ukraine, technically, in reality, I should say, not technically, but in reality, there are 55 nations in Europe. 55. So there is enough room for them to have at least, it was originally what, 4 groups of 4? Now it's 6 groups of 4? Something like that. Maybe it's 8 groups of 4. I have to look it up. But they can battle each other all the time, no matter what. And here's something you need to understand here, okay? You want to talk about CONCACAF nations? There are meaningless friendlies against you want to claim with the Gold Cup? In South America, okay, 3 countries that are a part of the South American landmass, I apologize. The 3 countries that are in CONCACAF right now, that are part of the South American landmass, geographically where they're located: Guyana, French Guyana, Suriname. Okay? They should really be in CONMEBOL, but they're in CONCACAF. Why? Because those 3 nations, Guyana, French Guyana, and Suriname, are located in South America. CONMEBOL did not want them involved, or if they were once involved in CONMEBOL, they were kicked out. They went and joined CONCACAF. And 2 of the 3, which is Guyana and Suriname, are FIFA members. French Guyana are not, because French Guyana is under French law. So basically, they are not members of FIFA. St. Martin, same thing. They're not members of FIFA. Why do you think Israel is in UEFA? Why? Simple, because of the ongoing conflicts that are going on between them and some of their neighbors in the Arab states over there. They left. They were once a dominant nation in Asia. They were part of the Asian Football Confederation. They've won an Asian Cup. But because of the growing issues that they've been having over there with some of their neighbors back in the day at the time, now everything's getting better. Well, we'll see what happens. But that's why they moved to UEFA. Political issues. That's why they are in UEFA now and for a long time. They're not in Asia anymore. They're not in the AFC anymore. They're in UEFA. And then you always ask about, well, how come there are 3 Welsh clubs that are involved in the English footballing pyramid? Because they want to be a part of it. I think I have to look that up because I'm not quite sure. I'm going to have to double check with Bryn Law on this because I keep forgetting what the issues are. But the same thing. In Major League Baseball, there's no Major League Baseball league in Canada. The Blue Jays are part of MLB in the United States. Just like the NHL. They have teams in Canada and teams in the United States. The majority of them are in the U.S., where you have right now 7 Canadian teams in the NHL in Canada. In the NBA, there were 2, Vancouver, Toronto. Vancouver moved to Memphis. Toronto kept the Raptors, finally won an NBA championship. But in those leagues, they don't care. But in football, why do you think they create the Canadian Premier League? So that they can have their own league and not be a part of MLS. Because most of the Canadians move to Europe to play and hone their skills in Europe so they can come back to play for Canada for their national team. Then MLS said, yeah, we'll allow Montreal. Yeah, you can create Toronto. Yeah, we'll allow Vancouver. Now there's the Canadian Premier League. And then they're hoping that Toronto FC, CF Montreal, Vancouver Whitecaps can go to the Canadian Premier League and take on Hamilton and Cavalry and Valor and Vancouver FC and York 9 and all those other clubs in the Canadian Premier League. Bring them home. Get them out of MLS and be in the Canadian Premier League. You think you're so smart and you don't know a damn thing of how football is governed across the board. And forget about the tag of major tournaments. We all know what the Euros are. Mexico, the USA can't go in it. They have to be invited. Copa America, they went before coming to the US. And then when the guest teams were wiped out, it became 2 groups of 5 for the Copa America. The 2 times the Copa America came to the USA, okay, for that centenario to celebrate the 100 years of the tournament, and the one that happened last summer, you have to understand CONMEBOL needs permission to play their tournament on American soil. Not only do you need permission from the U.S. Soccer Federation, you also need permission from the governing body of the region, which is CONCACAF. CONCACAF, the Confederation of North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. You understand? And if that means you can play your tournament in the United States, you can play your tournament in a CONCACAF region, nation, well, that means you got to rework the qualification process to allow at least a certain amount of clubs or a certain amount of teams, international teams, to play in this tournament that is under CONMEBOL. Do you not understand the words that are coming out of my mouth? Because if you don't know, then don't claim you do. Because if you think I'm talking out of my ass, excuse me, at least my ass is smarter because you have no brains. Period. You think you know, but you don't know. That's why I'm here for you, to teach you these things, but you don't want to learn because you think you know more than I do. I have been watching this sport for a very, very long time, with many other people who have been watching this sport for a very, very long time. Okay? And your arrogance about the national team and about playing certain nations from within this confederation or outside the confederation is basically a friendly, which you have no clue, no idea of how these things work. I'm not saying the Gold Cup's a major tournament, because it's not. And I don't see it as a major tournament, but this is the tournament that we are a part of. USA, Canada, Mexico, the North Zone. What is the Central Zone? Huh? Costa Rica, Honduras, Guatemala, Belize, El Salvador, Nicaragua, Panama. And the Caribbean Zone, up and down the freaking channel, like Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Aruba, Curacao, originally called Netherlands Antilles, U.S. Virgin Islands, British Virgin Islands, Montserrat, Anguilla, Aruba, Antigua and Barbuda, St. Kitts and Nevis, Suriname, Guyana, and then those other nations, those other islands that are not affiliates of FIFA, that only are CONCACAF members because they are under either French law or Dutch law, and they can't go. Guadeloupe, St. Martin, the Dutch version of St. Martin, which is Sint Maarten. Well, do you know? Do you claim to know? Do you think you know? Because if you don't know, then shut it. And don't assume you know what's going on. Don't assume it. Because if you do, you become an ass like you and me. When you assume, you become an ass like you and me. So don't be an ass. Do you understand? Do I have to give a class about what goes on all over the place? Do I have to explain it every single time we have a mindless moron on social media always talking about, well, I know more than you do, and you think you're so smart? Ha ha. Yeah, I am smart because I study it, I watch it, I read it, I learn it. Because you continue to crap all over this confederation. I'm not saying it's the best. There are too many minnows in this confederation, and they're mostly from the Caribbean. Okay? They're mostly from the Caribbean. But if you don't know what's going on, then don't say a word. If you want to learn, I will gladly teach you. Simple. I will gladly teach you the situations and how this sport is governed and the different layers at league level, international level, or league level, national level, countrywide, and international level. Because if you don't know, then shut up and keep your mouth shut. It's just really, really mind-numbing when you try to talk to morons who don't know what they're talking about, all because you think MLS is crap, and that's fine. Whatever, it's fine. Yeah, there are certain things I don't like about the league, and there are certain things I wish the league would, do like everyone else does around the world, but they don't want to. U.S. Soccer doesn't want to do it. There are issues that you don't know. And if you did know, you'd understand it better, but you don't want to. Because all you want to do is point the finger and blame and not have a real mind of what is going on in the background, inside Soccer House. You don't know. You don't know. And until you do, don't talk. Don't speak. Don't assume you know what's going on because you have no clue. Period. And that's my tongue lashing section of this program tonight. But I want to thank my guests tonight, covering the Chicago Fire once again, Ruben Tisch of the Lantern and Guillermo Rivera of Fire Confidential. My name is Daniel Feuerstein. Join me this Friday night for the NPSL Soccer Show, episode number 3 of the 2025 season. And join me with more U.S. men's national team news, and I'll be trying to set up some Gold Cup review shows, try and do as many as I can. Probably we'll do the U.S. men's national team. We'll try and get a panel together, and hopefully we will get them going. My name is Daniel Feuerstein. Thank you very much for listening to me tonight and watching me tonight. And as always, please, please, please enjoy your football. Thank you. Have a good night. Take care. So long, and bye-bye for now. Have a good night, everybody.